ACT Mathematicals. What are we going to do tomorrow if we're taking the test? But we haven't really prepared. This is my last minute, my last shot before I win the game. Let's set our expectations. Like I had mentioned before, you're not going to get a perfect score. You're not going to do super well, but you're going in with the intentions of finding out what you need to do to beat down the test the next time you see it. So if you're taking a test tomorrow, I'm exaggerating, but maybe you are taking a test tomorrow. That's okay. No big deal. Take the stress off your shoulders. You're going in on a fact finding mission so that when you come out of test, you'll know exactly what you need to do for the next time you take the ACT. A lot of students will take the ACT because they're trying to figure out which test they should really focus on. Should they focus on SAT or ACT? Mr. Alberto, what's your recommendation? With what I know about the exams, I would certainly focus on the SAT because the SAT is so much easier to destroy today. They've really made it easier. But unfortunately, you guys have no idea what the older test versions used to be like. So there's nothing to compare it to. So it's going to seem like a hard test. But trust me, I've been working on this for 25 years, preparing students for the exams, and this is the time to take the SATs and destroy them. But Mr. Alberto, what about the ACT? The ACT isn't too bad, but you better know your business, especially with the math. There are no math formulas given to you in the math section of the exam. The format is a little different as well. You are being tested on Algebra 1 and Geometry 1, but there are going to be some tougher questions that seem really hard, but actually without practice, they seem super hard, but with practice, you realize they are pretty easy. Yes, you do have Desmos during the exam, but you do have some procedures you need to follow. We talked about this in the last video. We do have 4 questions that will be unscored. That is the truth, Ruth. You have 15 easy questions. Those are the first 15 questions. 15 medium level questions. That'll be questions 16 through 30. And then you have 15 hard questions. Those will be the last questions, 31 through 45. Now, hard only means that most students answer those questions incorrectly. That's why they put it deeper in the test. So if you had taken a PACT, it's like the SAT's version of the ACT's version of the PSAT. A PACT or an ACT in the past, some of the questions are experimental questions. Hence, so 4 unscored questions because they're trying out those questions, see whether or not they use it in a future exam. All right, as we move along here, let me show you the formulas that you guys need to be familiar with right here. These are your formulas for your geometry. These are extra information about exponent rules. They love testing exponents. Maybe you've forgotten your radical rules. Well, they're here for you, so you can take some time to review these, understand them. Believe me, guys, I always run into students like, oh my goshness, gosh, my math teacher was horrible. But if you got at least a C minus in Algebra 1, you got at least a C minus in Geometry 1, you're ready to take the SATs. Some of you guys might have to work a little bit harder to recall the information seen from Geometry 1. Maybe that was taken 2 years ago. And your Algebra 1, maybe you're in it right now. But they're just testing basic fundamentals, little windows or bubbles of information that I love using over and over again. All right, let's go see what we find when we go to act.org and we find their practice test. Now, if I go to the top of the screen, it's going to look like this. See the big yellow box where it says full-length practice test? You hit that, it opens up to this screen. Well, I'll just tell you, right in the middle, you're going to see where it says mathematics. Practice test 1 timed mathematics right underneath the English. Just click on that. We're going to do the timed one. I'd suggest you do time just to feel what the time looks like or what it feels like when you're actually messing around. All right, what is my business? Oh, again, I love the fact that ACT will show you the directions or instructions, but the timer doesn't start. Thank goodness, because in the SATs, bro, they just start immediately. They show you that introduction with a little X in the right-hand corner of the box. You're like, how do I get rid of this thing? And you just blow in like 10, 15 seconds. So get familiar. If I click next, I get some more instructions. All right, good. You guys can read this at your leisure, but not during the test. During the exam, you should already know this stuff. Now I'm going to click next. It's going to kick off the timer. Now, what do we do in the first 60 seconds? Here's your business. Whether you're trying to get an awesome, high score of a 30 plus score, because the highest score is a 36, or if you're just trying to pass the math requirement for graduation in the state of Florida, you're going to do the same thing in the first 60 seconds. Here we go. Whoop, click next. The timer has already begun. 49 minutes and 25 seconds already moving. Where are my 30 seconds? All right. This question, this is the very first question. Do you see where it says flag on the right hand side of the screen, right below the timer flag? And then you see index right next to it? Bruh, we're going to index. Whoop. Now, all the questions have been indexed. I'm going to the last question, 45. Bang. And I am going to dummy that answer. I'm going to choose D just like I did in the English with the last video. Question number 44, D, 43, D. What am I doing? I'm dummy answering the toughest questions, which would be the last 15 questions, immediately in the first 15 seconds. I'm sorry, the first 60 seconds. I'm going to dummy answer the last 15 questions. Questions 41, I'm sorry, 31 through 45. It's 39, 30 dummied, dummy. Now, this feels good when you're doing this because everybody else is going to be breaking their brain. And I'm just little by little just cutting down, dummy answering these questions. Now, do you believe that all these questions will be incorrect? These 15 that I've answered D? No, they're not all going to be correct and they're not all going to be correct, but some will certainly be correct. Will I get out of the 15? Will it be like 8 will be correct if I chose D? No, the test makers are not going to be nice that way because they know that a lot of us will dummy answer. But I do know that maybe 3, 4, I'll even take the 2. If you find $2 bills in a parking lot and nobody's around, it's midnight, and all you hear are crickets, you're going to pick up the $2 and say, oh, does anybody own these? And you don't hear anybody, then you leave them on the ground. No, you're going to pick up the easy money. So, all right, I have these questions already answered. And how much time has gone by? Oh, it's at 47 minutes. With all my talkity, it would have been at 48 minutes or 49 minutes left. You guys get the game? Then you go back to question number 1 and you do your business. So the first 15 questions, after the first minute of dummy answering the last 15, go to question number 1 and do your business. If you're taking a test tomorrow or next week, perhaps, this would be a good idea to get familiar with the questions that do give you trouble. And you'll notice Cameron took 4 tests and his scores were as follows: 160, 80, and 30. Cameron took another test that was scored X. The mean score of the 5 tests he took is 72. What is the value of X? So the testing average. There's 4 tests, you have 4 scores, but he took 5 tests. It's an average score of 72. So what's 5 times 72? I'll do it in my calculator here. Sorry, I can't show you on the screen. 5 times 72 is 360. Then you take 360 and you subtract 100, subtract 60, subtract 80, subtract 30, and you get the value of X for that 5th test. Let's take a look at what question number 2 would look like. Oh, Venn diagrams. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Venn diagrams, but if you feel like this is troublesome for you, great. You just identified a weakness. If you're taking a test tomorrow, you get a basic idea of Venn diagrams. If you read, it says S, C, and P represents farms raising sheep. That's for the S. Cows, that's for C. And pigs, that's for P. See how the circles overlap? Well, how many farms only raise sheep? That's 12. How many farms only raise cows? 10. How many farms only raise pigs? That's 5. Oh, how many farms raise cows and pigs? That's 4. How many farms raise only sheep and cows? That's going to be 13. See how these guys overlap? All right, now the question is asking, how many of the 47 farms represented in the diagram do not raise cows? So where are cows not shared? You see where it shows you on the bottom left-hand side, 12, 2, and 5? What's 12 plus 2 plus 5? It equals 19. So these are the type of questions that you're going to come across. Oh, by the way, there was a student the other day. She thought that this was geometry, and she freaked out immediately. So I told her, you need to practice so you can recognize questions for what they're showing you, and you don't have to freak out anymore because you'll be very familiar. Remember, they're very constrained. The test makers are very constrained as to which type of questions they can give you. It has to abide by basic rules, basic fundamentals of Algebra 1 and Geometry 1. The majority of the ACT, algebra questions. The majority of the SAT, algebra questions. Geometry. Geometry pops up a lot more in the ACT than it will in the SAT, just to let you know. All right, here, pretty wordy question, perhaps because it's so wordy. Maybe I'll dummy answer this, flag it for review, and come back, but I know it's an easy question, or I can try it out. Let's take a look at question number 4 and see what it looks like. Here we go. We have geometry here, and triangle ABC. Yeah, they love asking a lot of triangle rules. What's the basic rules of triangles? You have 180 degrees in any triangle. You guys have to understand what congruent angles are, congruent lines, or congruent images. That means they're exactly the same. So they're telling us here that angle A and C are exactly congruent. The measure of angle B is 143.6. So what can be angle A? So if you have two congruent angles, that means they're equal, and you have 180 degrees in a triangle, well then, what is 180 minus 143.6? And then divide that answer by 2, and ding, dang, doon, you got your answer. Knowing that, what if I took 180 and subtracted 140 degrees? Then that would be 40 degrees left over. 40 divided by 2 would be 20. So which answer is closest to 20? So A would be my answer without using a calculator. But if you want to use your calculator, by all means, do so. Question number 5. We got quadratic rules. Question number 6. Matrices. If you've forgotten how to deal with matrices, don't worry, have no fear. But during the test, if you come across any matrix question you can completely confused, just guess and get out. Move. Now you know what you need to do or what you need to review before you take the next ACT. Oh, matrix questions, are they asked in the SATs? No, I haven't seen them yet, and I don't believe we'll ever see them. Question number 7, very wordy question. But since it's question number 7 out of the first 15 questions, don't be afraid. It's going to be an easy question. They want to scare you. Question number 8, radical rules. So if you're a little unfamiliar with your radicals, but you trust your handy dandy calculator, you can go a long way. Oh, by the way, could you use this on Desmos? Yes, you could use this on Desmos. Question number 9. This could be a Desmos question. You could plug this in if you wanted to, but is it really necessary? If you know your basic fundamentals of how to move information around, you'd be good to go. Basically, they just want you to solve for X. So we need to move that -1 to the other side by adding 1. We need to get rid of that 5 that's next to 5 times X and divide both sides by 5. And you got your answer. Notice if you're going to divide it by 5, your answer looks like it's going to be either C or D. So you can kill A and B. So it's going to be 6y plus 1 all divided by 5. So what's 6y plus 1 all divided by 5? It is D as in double trouble. Without a calculator, without a pencil, you can own some of these questions. Now, yes, I do understand some of us might be a little rustier than the other person taking the test, but that's why we're doing what we're doing right now. You're watching this video to get much more familiar with the type of questions. These type of questions are asked over and over and over again. Now, with more time, what's a good amount of time to prepare for the English section of the ACT, math section of the ACT, the reading section of the ACT? I'm omitting science because I wouldn't take the science section of the exam because most colleges don't care about the science score. However, if you're applying to a college that requires the science section of the ACT, then make sure you sign up with ACT Science. But for the rest of the colleges in this country, which are like 99% of them, they don't care about the science. So, with practice, I'd say you're looking at about a good 7 to 8 weeks would be optimal to take the test. Anything more than 10 weeks, you're going to get tired. You're going to get really bored with preparing for the test. But if you took 7, 8 weeks, no more than 10 weeks to prepare for the ACTs, you're good to go, Bubba. 30 minutes a day goes a long way. And that means 30 minutes every day, 15 minutes of math, 15 minutes of grammar, or 15 minutes math and 15 minutes of reading. By the way, isn't that the same amount of time that we use for the SAT prep? Yep, same thing. 7 to 8 weeks, at most 10. Anything more than that, if you're like this, the athlete who's very busy, maybe you need to stretch it into 15 weeks. Or if you're that very busy student who's, I don't know, captain the cheerleading squad, captain the badminton team, and you run track, and you're also president of the class. Yeah, you're going to need more time. You're just that type of student. But if you have some time on your side, 30 minutes a day, you can find it. 15 minutes math, 15 minutes reading, or 15 minutes math, 15 minutes English. Same thing with the SATs. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. If you go through all the questions, 1 through 30, you're going to run back into 31 through 45 that you had already dummy answered. Now you take a look at the question, see if you can change an answer. Oh, I answered D. Should I have answered D? See, now you have time on your side in triangle ABC. If the measure of angle A is less than the measure of angle B, yes, I would use scratch paper for this. By the way, you will be supplied with scratch paper. That I believe they're going to have to give it to you one at a time. So if you used one up, raise your hand, ask for a second one. Again, with the math section of the exam, they give you Desmos, but Desmos is not needed for the entire exam. Desmos is up here. It's in that toolbox right next to, on the left-hand side where it says ACT. See the toolbox? You have Desmos graphing calculator. This isn't really going to help you. I do. I believe that now Desmos in the actual exam will also have a matrix calculator involved. Wait, let me see what it looks like so you're familiar. Oops. Wait, do I have it here? Oh, here it is. Here it is. This is what it would look like. You see where it says new matrix? So if you have a matrix question, you can switch into matrix or it's already built in. I'm not sure. I'm going to be taking the April exam. So when I take it, then I'll know. The last time I had taken it, it didn't have a new matrix form function. But if it does have it when you're taking the test, terrific. So whoops and booty. I'm going to X out the screen. Take a look at item 32. Lawan. Lawan sells exactly 4 kinds of pies in his bakery: apple, pecan, coconut cream, and peach. Of the pies he sold on Thursday, 1/4 were apple, 1/2 were pecan, and 24 were coconut cream, and 8 were peach. How many total pies did Lawan sell on Thursday? This is the type of question. It's not really hard, but it does bend the mind. These are like mind benders. So when you actually work on hard questions, why are they labeled hard? Because students get a little confused with these. They're not terribly difficult. But if you see how these work, you're going to realize that they're super easy. The main purpose for this video is so you guys get familiar with your steps of attacking the math section of the exam. Then you can take a look at the rest of the questions. Now, if any of these questions you can change your answer, then that's what you do, change your answer. All right, so the overall picture of taking the ACT math section, the very first thing you do in the first 60 seconds of the test, you're going to go to the last 15 questions and dummy answer all of those questions and flag them. So when you flag them, you can easily find them. Right after you flag them, then you're going to start with question number 1 and work your way up to question number 30. Now, of the first 30 questions, you might get stumped on maybe 4 or 5 of them. Okay, dummy answer and flag. You can always come back to them. Once you get to the 30th question, then take a look at questions 31 through 45. You're going to recognize if you can change an answer or not. You might run into maybe 4 or 5 questions and say, oh, yes, I know this. I can change this answer and change it from my dummy answer to the correct or best answer. After you've done that, then you can go back. You're going to have time left over to check on any of the questions that you might have dummied and flagged, and then change your answer. And that's it. That's the math section of the exam. But you should certainly practice before taking the test tomorrow, if you're taking it tomorrow or next week. But set your expectations. Don't put a lot of weight on your shoulders. Just go in knowing you have a strategy, you're going to employ it. After you get out of the test, now you'll know what you'll need to do for the next exam. All right, guys, if you have any questions, you know where to contact me. My name is Mr. Alberto. I can certainly be contacted at 786-877-7231, just like you see on your screen. Catch you later.